Hey guys, it's Demario, and my strategy that I chose is compare and contrast, which is one of my favorite strategies in school. Strategy overview of compare and contrast is a strategy that students use to conduct a comparative analysis using criteria to draw conclusions and infer possible causes and effects. Robert Marzano, Deborah Pickering, and Jane Pollock found that teaching students how to identify similarities and differences is the single most effective way to raise achievement. It, this strategy takes the natural human capacity to make comparisons and maximizes its effectiveness as an instructional technique by leading students through a process that involves things such as describing each item separately, identifying similarities and differences using a comparison organizer, forming and discussing conclusions, and synthesizing learning by completing the task. And over here to the right, I just have this is a Venn diagram, which is a comparison diagram, of course. In A, which is the green side, you put characteristics of a certain topic, person, etc., anything. And in B, the blue side, you put other characteristics of another person, character, topic, anything. And then in A and B, you meet in the middle and you put the things that they both have or that they share, that they have in common. And the Venn diagram was one of the most effective comparison tools that I use in school. I used to always love drawing those two interlocking circles. This is a diagram. This is a strategic dashboard, and of course, you introduce, you have practice and application, the new knowledge, reflection, and assessment. Some of the hidden skills of academic literacy, under read and study, you got they collect and organize ideas through note taking. Under reason and analyze, you got draw conclusions, make test inferences, hypotheses, conjectures, and you conduct comparisons using criteria. Under create and communicate, you have write comfortably in a major nonfiction genres, and you read and write about two or more documents. And under reflect and relate, the main thing is using criteria and guidelines to evaluate work. As far as what facets of understanding does the strategy develop, as far as explanation goes, it develops most. Interpretation is, well, explanation is all the way most. Interpretation is a little over most. Application is as well, and perspective is as well. But when you get to empathy, it's on the least side, as well as self knowledge is on the least side as well. What type of knowledge does this strategy teach? Declarative, it teaches more declarative knowledge and also more procedural knowledge. Why does strategy work? One reason that comparison strategy yields such high level of achievement is that the human ability to compare is one of our cognitive endowments. Humans love putting things into pairs. This tendency to see the universe in sets of matching pairs has several advantages, such as increasing our memory capacity. Two ideas linked together last way long. It lets us use old knowledge to make sense of new knowledge. For example, one way to figure out how the atmosphere works is to make a comparison by asking, how is the atmosphere like a blanket of air? It helps us find connections and create new ideas, and it makes the invisible visible, the confusable clear and concise, and the neglectable unavoidable. And over here is a side-by-side diagram, which is in the three top boxes, you put whatever the different topic is, the characteristic, ET, etc. And then in the three boxes below the big boxes, you write the different characteristics of each topic that's in the top three boxes. And it's a side-by-side diagram. How the strategy works. You introduce the process of comparison by first comparing and contrasting simple, everyday items that students are familiar with, cats and dogs, apples and oranges, winter and spring, tall and short, black and white, large, small, yin yang, those kind of, just the basics. And then you choose two separate objects, concepts, or readings that students will compare and contrast. You establish the purpose of comparison by answering the question, why are we conducting a comparison? Also, you provide students with criteria for analyzing the two items. Example given was, what do they eat? What do they look like? How do they behave? And also, you have students use a criteria to describe each item separately. A two-column description organizer is usually the most helpful way in doing this. Continuing on how the strategy works, you show students how to use a comparison organizer to distinguish between the two options by recording similarities and differences. You lead a discussion using synthesis questions. For example, are these two objects more alike or more different? What is the most important difference? What are the causes and effects of this difference? Also, what conclusions can you draw? Then you can move students towards independence by teaching them how to formulate criteria, describe items, and determine key similarities and differences. And over here to the right is another comparison diagram, which is the top hat organizer. It's pretty self-explanatory. You got topic 1 and topic 2, and you list the different characteristics and of the two topics, and at the bottom you list the characteristics that both of them have. Implementation of the strategy into a lesson. When planning a compare and contrast lesson, you should always begin by identifying your purpose. For example, why have you chosen to engage students in the comparison? What insights will students gain as a result of the lesson? Also, at the beginning of any compare and contrast lesson, students should hear statements that sound like this. We have read 2 of Shakespeare's tragedies, Hamlet and Macbeth. Let's compare the two tragic heroes to see how Shakespeare makes his characters both universal and unique. When selecting content for compare and contrast, look for pairs that will naturally heighten understanding when considered together. And over here to the right is another diagram. This is the Y organizer. And on the left side, you put A. On the right side, you put B. And where you make the Y, that's where you put the characteristics that both of these, that A and B share. Implementation continued. It's 4 phases of compare and contrast. Phase 1 is description. In this phase, students observe and describe each item separately. In phase 2, you got comparison. And this is when students use a visual organizer to identify similarities and differences between the two items. Phase 3 is the conclusion phase. And this is where students discuss the relationship between the items. And lastly, phase 4, which is application. Students apply what they have learned as a result of the comparison. Strategy used for reflecting licensure. I'm going to school. Well, I have my certification in English, Language Arts, ELA. And a part of my thematic unit is focusing on the different things in Macbeth. So putting this in my unit, I can look at things such as comparing and contrasting the different themes within the play. What are some of the similarities that the different themes share? What are some differences between the themes? Also looking at the characters in Macbeth, the strategy can be used to compare and contrast the different characters within the play. How are characters alike? What are some of the same traits and characteristics that they share? How are they different? What are some of the different traits and characteristics that these certain characters share? Or that others possess and others don't not share? But I also can look at the similarities that these characters share. So I already stated that. Sorry. And here's my references, which is the book from the book, which was a very helpful resource. So thank you all for listening to my strategy, which was compare and contrast. This is Demario signing off. Thank you.